All right, everyone, time to explain why I don't want my student loan debt forgiven. I understand student loan debt because I've got, almost $30,000 of it or something. To be clear, I went to UVM, a good school. It's considered public Ivy or whatever. I don't know what its ranking is. It's also a very hippie school. There are a lot of trust funders there, people with dreadlocks that are, not necessarily of Jamaican extraction. But I went there and I ended up dropping out actually in my fourth year because I just couldn't take it. Number one, I just couldn't fucking deal with things anymore. I had overdosed at that point, so I had social anxiety, number one. That made it really kind of difficult to motivate myself to go to class. Number two, I realized something. I had sort of an epiphany, and I realized even if I do well enough to get a degree, and I was studying Anthro and English, what kind of job is that going to get me? It's going to get me maybe a lower managerial position. Yeah, you can make ends meet with that, but is it going to be fulfilling? Am I going to really be able to spend the rest of my life doing that sort of thing? The answer is no. Unfortunately, while I'm skilled, I just wasn't motivated enough to get the kind of grades I would have needed for a master's or something to get like an ivory tower position. If I had been more motivated and hadn't overdosed, probably I would have tried to become a professor or something. That would be decent, or maybe a librarian or something to do some research library shit. I actually had a friend in high school. He took archival science and got a master's degree from I can't remember what university he went to, and much more motivated than I am, I suppose, and does well. But here's why I don't want the debt from that forgiven. I'm not going to use the lame excuse, I don't want it forgiven because, take personal responsibility. Okay, nobody gives a fuck about that. So let's be entirely honest. If you could have your debt written off, like let's say you have student loan debt, car debt, whatever, if you could get it magically taken care of so that it didn't cause any repercussions, you'd accept that. It'd be free money. Why the fuck would you turn down free money? There's the problem. And here's the way to explain to people why it's a bad idea, because there's no such thing as free. The government cannot give you anything that it hasn't taken from another entity, because the government does not produce. Private economy produces. Let me ask you this. Let's say that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and so forth, they pass a student loan debt forgiveness bill. Do you believe in a million years that they're going to get that money from billionaires? Name another time in his fucking goddamn career that Joe Biden has done anything akin to that. No, it's going to come from the middle class. It'll come from the middle class in one of two ways. Either a direct tax, which will attack the middle class, small businesses, maybe the working class, hell, maybe even the poor. It'll attack them and the working rich, a doctor or a lawyer, but certainly not Jeff Bezos. That's number one. Number two, by printing more money. Now, if you do that, it is still a tax. Just so you know, when you inflate the currency to pay for things, you're still taxing people's savings because you accelerate the devaluation of the dollar over time. This has been a perennial way for the government to pay for pet projects, and it keeps screwing people who actually do their fucking job, do it well, and attempt to save up. That's just the way that it goes. But anyway, the other part is that the government can't give you anything for free in the ideological sense either. If you had such a bill, it wouldn't be a clean bill. It'd be paired with a million other spending items. The government would essentially be robbing other citizens to give me free money that I voluntarily owe. It's a voluntary system. I'm not saying some deep-rooted philosophy of, I pull myself up by my bootstraps. Okay, I do like doing things myself. I am averse to asking for help, generally speaking. I like the fact that I'm accomplishing things largely on my own. That being said, I wouldn't be too proud to take free money. The problem is the government, it can't give it to me. If a private individual said, hey, Sticks, I want to pay off your student loan debt, some crazy rich person, that's fine. Perfectly fine. Not a government. You haven't stolen that from anybody. Unless I thought like you killed someone for the money or something, then I out of principle, I guess, have to reject. Depending on who you killed, I guess. That's just a joke, Jared Holt. Just so you know, I don't take money from assassins. It'd be interesting if someone who's like a cartel member actually like funded you on Patreon or something. It's always a possibility. They like YouTube too, just so you know. But the government can't give me free money. It can only take it from somebody else. And the problem is if you were to write off all the student loan debt, or as Camel has suggested, write off up to 10,000 of it for qualifying student loans if a person has paid them back for a long time. But the problem is we've already got such a system. Did you know this? If you pay your student loans For a certain period of time, it qualifies for potentially being offset by the government to certain totals. It will count as income. You'll have to pay part of that portion on income taxes, but a large proportion of it is taken care of. And it's heavily weighted in favor of people who are lower income because most of their income still wouldn't qualify for a significant income tax. Of course, somebody like me, a little bit different, it'd be taxed at a higher bracket. It wouldn't even be worth necessarily doing it. Also, some people say, well, student loan interest is the problem, not the student loans themselves. While I do believe that student loans should be subsidized to a zero interest rate, I do believe that. If a person is consistently making payments, that should be taken care of. And that would be cheap, by the way. The government can do that easily. The government fucks around with the currency all the time. Fuck it. That being said, if you were to write off, with regards to interest rates, the interest rates on student loans are lower than most forms of loan. You do realize that, correct? Compared to cars, credit cards, and so forth, the interest rates on those are a lot higher. Just even if you have good credit, a lot higher than student loan interest rate. I was delinquent on my student loans for years, and not that much interest actually built up over time. Of course, now I'm paying it down. At the moment, I don't think student loans are actually accruing interest. I think there are no auto payments at the moment for any servicers on federal student loans. Also, some people are saying, well, Biden should just sign an executive order erasing it. Well, he can't do that. I've had people claim that, well, they're federal loans and he's in the federal government, so that gives him the ability to write off the loan totals. No, it doesn't, you fucking moron. They call it a federal loan because of certain regulations applying to it. It's held by a private company. Student loan servicers essentially servicing that debt. They simply operate within certain stringencies. They're still a private company, dude. The government can't unilaterally cancel that sort of contract, write off the debt at taxpayer expense through an executive order. It's impossible. And just so you are aware, the states handle a lot of the debt too. It's not all federal. A lot of it's state held. A lot of it's privately held. Some people, they take out a private loan, their bank or something like that. What if you've already refied? What if you've already refinanced through a bank? You have a good relationship with your local bank. They're willing to bundle it with other things, offer you a lower rate. What's going to happen to your debt? Well, I guess you're fucked, right? For taking responsibility and having good enough credit to justify such a move? Get penalized? What about people who already paid off enormous amounts of student loan debt? Is the government just going to sign them a check? What about people who don't go to college? Why should they be fucked? That's disproportionately like the poor and working class anyway. People that didn't go to college or, they went to a community college or something. They didn't get debt. They just paid as they went. Why should they be screwed? You're essentially giving free money to trust funders half the time. You're talking about student loan debt. I feel very sorry for people with lots of student loan debt. Guess what? I'm one of you. I understand what it's like to be drowning in student loan debt. I'm not the sort of person who ridicules the poor, because for most of my life I was one, and says pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There are things that we need to do to solve this problem. We do have a debt crisis. It is bubbling up. It is a problem. It is holding back investment. That's all true. Writing it all off would destroy several million jobs, would not create any new actual upward mobility, so you'd have people that would be debt-free. They're not making student loan debt payments, but then they're going to take that money, and guess what? Most of them will have to pay it in additional taxes. That's the problem. What does it matter if I save, I can't remember how much I pay per month on my student loans. What if my taxes rise proportionally, so I'm paying the same amount and I'm just giving it to the government instead of to a loan servicer? What the fuck is the difference? Who cares? And you still haven't solved the underlying problem of why the student loan debt exists. The fundamental underpinning of why it exists is that cost of college is high. Why is it high? Why is it not like the 50s and 60s where a part-time summer job could pay your tuition? Oh, that's right. The government came in and started throwing grants to the schools with the idea that they could let in people of lower incomes and they'd have things paid off. But instead of doing that, the schools just jacked up the rates accordingly, supplied more loans to people at higher private interest rates until recently, and then they built another stadium. They built a new wing on their library for 18th century women's studies literature. They built a new annex for Black history teaching for their master's course and stuff like that. Humanity, human interest stuff. Feng Shui and Buddhism 201 and stuff like that. Things that are well outside of really the necessity of the average college kid. And then they started forcing people to take these courses. They're not even half the time, they're not electives. You have to take Like what is it at UVM? I think it was like 18 total credits, like a whole, almost 2 semesters worth or something of filler courses. It's bullshit. That's why it costs so much. You get a bunch of professors you don't need, buildings that don't serve any fucking purpose other than aesthetics. That's not what college is meant to be for. That's the whole reason. No shit, it's expensive. Someone should start a no-frills university that just teaches basic STEM and stuff like that, and offers like bare bones dormitories and stuff like that to drop the cost. Now, except you can't do that in this, because you wouldn't be able to outcompete, because these other places have multi-million dollar budgets each year just from the government, pumping them full of taxpayer money already. These schools already get taxpayer money. They don't need all the debt written off. They just jack up the costs again anyway. That's about all. Peace out.